No, I'm a little too elderly for that.
Do you want to get started, Ryan, or you want to?
So we have 4 of the 6 is the way I count. Is that correct?
Yeah, we just got some housekeeping to take care of at the beginning, and who knows, people show up when we get into the meat of the meeting, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, we have,
Steph is gonna be late, so don't count on her right now.
we currently have a quorum.
That sounds about right. I'm just making sure. Don't want to jump the gun here, Brian. All right. Should I share my screen with the agenda, or should I just read it off? You guys tell me.
I guess we'll have the agenda if you just want to start.
Yeah, everybody should have the agenda. So on the call we have Chris Cohen, Ellie Neves, Brian Murtaugh, Ryan Fitzpatrick. That constitutes a quorum. We're gonna just review. The next bullet is that we're gonna review protocols. We're gonna have our conversations. We're gonna go through the agenda. We're going to open up for comment from the public at the end of the meeting for a 3-minute period for each person. This week, as discussed amongst committee members, we're going to ask everybody for their name, their location, meaning if they live in Rye and what neighborhood they live in, don't want your address, or they're outside of Rye. We're interested in finding out what the citizens of Rye think, more than we are of outside parties. Right? I've sent around the meeting minutes. Does anybody have any comments, changes, or questions related to those minutes?
I didn't see any. It looked fine to me.
So I make a motion to adopt the minutes from the last meeting.
Second that.
I agree.
Okay, they are adopted.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those against say nay.
So,
So passed.
I didn't attend the meeting, so I'll abstain.
That's fine. We did that. Old business. Chris and Ellie, forest health assessment. Have we had any progress in that regard, whether it be, and I think the answer to that is an affirmative, but I want to hear from you guys. Do we have anything, whether there's any movement on either vendors or anything else?
Yeah, let us bring you up to date. So today we've requested forest ecology proposals from 5 different individuals and organizations. We've reached out to Syracuse University College of Environmental Science and Forestry, New York State DEC, Westchester County Parks Department, Irvington the Woods, Director of Grounds and Operations, Teatown Lake Reservation, Director of Stewardship, and the Greenwich Land Trust. To date, we've received 4 responses regarding professional services. 2 of them declined, 2 of them we have in hand. There's a 5th that I hope to get possibly next week from a Krista McDonald. She's a PhD. She's the science director of Hudsonia Institute up at Bard College.
Chris, did you count? I sent across Barrett's proposal as well.
Yes, I'm including that too. Yes, thank you. Yeah. From our research and meeting with a lot of people on the phone and in person, it's clear that this is a specialty and there are few qualified candidates in our area. To ensure we can retain the professional services, it's become clear to me that we should recommend to retain a forest ecologist soon before the spring arrives, as they are all getting booked up and we may lose the season. I understand, hopefully we'll get that 3rd one next week, but I understand that if we have requested proposals, at least from 3 candidates, whether they decline or not, we've met the requirements to move forward with making a recommendation. Dr. Begley's name keeps coming up as a highly recommended professional. She has done this similar work in her area and knows exactly how to proceed while offering us her input guidance based on many years of practice. Therefore, I do recommend that by the next meeting, we move forward to hire a forest ecologist, whomever that might be. I wrote down some stuff because I've been speaking to all these learning.
I'm sorry, Chris, can I just, so John, what would be the process for, taking Chris's recommendation and ultimately the board's recommendation forward from a sort of internal process perspective in terms of retaining that person?
It would be relatively similar to what we're doing with the drone surveys, where
Okay.
Yeah, I would prefer if ahead of time you gave me all of the estimates, the quotes, whatever you get.
Yeah.
We'll review them. We'll add some requirements, and then the following meeting, which could be next month's meeting.
Sure. So
You guys
just,
will vote on it. Vote to basically send this to the city council, and ideally you'd have some kind of message associated with that. So either one of you is going there, or probably more could be some kind of memo or document, and you basically vote like, yes, we all agree on this.
right.
We're gonna send it.
John, I'm gonna try and walk us through the process that you and I have discussed a little bit later, but yes, I think what you're describing is accurate.
All right, but just
It'll be the
to,
same.
just to make sure that we know what we need to do, and I understand that we'll talk about the process later, although I wonder if we shouldn't talk about it now, is what are the types of requirements that you think you might require? Because whomever the potential candidates are, you don't want to drop like, oh, you need to have XYZ insurance in order to actually do this work. And they're like, well, I have insurance, but I only have, $100,000 worth of insurance, and you're telling me I need 250. In other words, you're engaged someone, we need to be clear in terms of what the requirements are.
Generally for kind of like short-term services, we require $1 million in liability insurance.
Okay.
If that's a problem for these people, for forest ecologists, I could talk to our corporation counsel. I imagine because a forest ecologist is not doing anything that could really even potentially harm the public or someone, that it wouldn't be impossible to lower those standards. But
Okay, well, again, I just think in fairness to anyone who's proposing to do work for us, they spend the time and effort to put forward a proposal, not to come back with $1 million insurance requirement when they're like, if I had known that, I wouldn't have gotten involved, or alternatively, I could have done it, but now it's going to take me a month to get it. So if we could just work out what those things are in advance, I think
the standard is going to be $1 million.
Okay, is there anything else
Honestly,
like that? An indemnity, a form of contract that they're supposed to use? Do they need to get vetted from a IRS tax perspective? Do they need, I realize I'm talking about the minutia, but that's what slows these things down.
Sure. So again, when it comes to like some kind of implementation plan, I don't want to say that it's going to be classified as a professional service, because it may be something that we need to issue an RFP for. But if this is considered a professional service, we don't need all that. We need at most like a hold harmless or some kind of, like you said, indemnification and proof that they have insurance for what they're doing. It's not too complicated. Again, I'm not going to say everything you do will be this easy, because if you request at some point 6 months from now a service that's going to require like an ongoing continuous service, then we might have to look at it, an RFP for that, which is going to require even a lot more. But then there will be an RFP, and that's a different process. So
Sure. Again, that's completely understood. When we start hiring people with bows and arrows and guns and all that sort of stuff, I know we're off the rails. I'm just simply saying, for what we're talking about, for a forester, what would we need to do so that we can tell this lady and the other candidates, this is what we need in order to work for the city of Rye?
So that sounds like that's the key thing, is the is the co-insurance of $1 million minimum, right?
Standard. If that's if that's a barrier for anyone, let me know. I think for a forest ecologist that's not, really doing any labor, is mostly researching, that we might be able to lower that if it's a problem. But
While we're
that
getting
would be
into
the
the
standard.
John, what we're getting to the minutia,
Sure.
is there any difference in like requirements, say, for a professional service, say like 0 to 10,000, 10,000 and above? Is there any difference in requirements based on the size of the
There
contract?
isn't a set level, but if it gets to a certain point, I think, the council and everyone wants us to take a much harder look at this. Is, a $4,000 contract to go in for 1 month and do a specific service. That's usually not, the biggest deal. But,
Gotcha.
if you're talking about 150,000, yeah, the city's going to go about it very differently just because of the amount of money involved.
Okay, fair enough.
Right. Okay.
So I
So,
did want to, depending on how much time you want, but I met with a lot of people. I learned a lot speaking to all these different practitioners. It was interesting how the same issues continue to arise whomever I spoke with. They all agree that the priority number one is to right-size the deer herd population to restore the ecosystem balance, protecting human health and safety, and what is ineffective, impractical, and what effectively works. And I could go into, I'll just read the headline. Basically, under ecological restoration and conservation, we all recognize that preventing habitat destruction is very important, and overabundance of deer is the number one impact. Protecting biodiversity is a clear loss of understory vegetation, which is directly impacted by the large deer population. Also concerned about improving the deer health. Unchecked deer populations often exceed their habitat's carrying capacity, leading to higher rates of disease, parasites, and starvation, particularly during harsh winters. Culling helps maintain a healthier, more balanced deer population. They all seem to keep coming back to reduce human health and safety, reducing disease transmission, enhancing road safety, and minimizing property damage. When it came to practicality and efficacy, they found that really the most cost-effective is establishing a culling program. It's fast, it's cost-effective, and the benefits are that there's a great deal of meat that can then be distributed to those that are needy. And the fact is that they all keep saying about there's an absence of natural predators, as humans have largely eliminated natural predators like wolves and cougars, etc. Hunting serves as a necessary function of a predator, to keep the deer population in check. And unfortunately, hunters have also decreased in numbers too. And they all recognize that deer reproduce very quickly. So consistency, they said, if you decide to go forward with a deer management plan, you should stick with it and, consistently go through it year after year. So those are just some of the quick notes I got from talking to a wide variety of people all over.
But the focus right now is just, let's retain an expert in forestry who can help advise the committee about what we're seeing, and we go forward from there, right?
yeah. So the only, Ellie, do you have anything on this topic before I add my 2 cents here?
Nope, Chris pretty much spearheaded the entire thing, so I really appreciate his effort.
Great. So, as an aside, I took some emails between Jack Smack, myself, Barrett Blasi, and Chris, and forwarded it to Dr. Susan Kalis, because she said that we could utilize, now, she's the only PhD that's an expert, has said that we could utilize the efforts that that the Rye Nature Center has already done for the last 10 years, and utilize that to determine if we have a problem. So I sent that along with Chris and Ellie in copy, because they're the people on this thread. I have not heard back from her. She was moving her daughter, et cetera, et cetera. So we're waiting to hear back. Now, she's the only one that said we could use this information if it was appropriate. But she's also the only one who hasn't given us a proposal out of the people we asked. So it comes with a little bit more weight, in my opinion, because she's not looking for a job. The other people are looking to do the same work over again. And so we've got it out there. We don't have an answer. We're waiting for her to respond. And it was a pretty blunt question, which was, you said that we could be able to tell, and the data is not squishy. Here's the information, here's the data, and it's fairly detailed. Do we potentially have a deer problem, or don't we? And then I'm going to let her respond.
Okay, good. Can I have a quick question about that, Ryan? So, you know, when she said, you know, you could use this information, right? Well, you know, from my perspective, you can interpret what she's saying as meaning it would be commercially reasonable, or it would be, you know, from within a science perspective, it would be reasonable to consider that information, or phrased differently, it wouldn't be unreasonable to consider it, right? Or she could be saying, you could use this to meet a standard such as what the New York State Department of, I don't know, Forestry, whatever the hell they're called these days, you know, is going to require. Do you know which of the two she's speaking about?
She is speaking specifically to, can we determine if there is if the forest is compromised and the damage is such that the deer are causing that problem?
From a scientific perspective.
Scientific perspective, specifically was concerned about the control, and the control the way I read it, and I'm not a scientist, so I'm not going to opine as to what I think. And the control is markedly different than what is in the deer exposures.
So we have to look at like how the data is collected. Is it being collected the same, same standard, same process in the last 10 years? Is there any variation in all of that information?
It is, and so what some of this stuff is actually quite concerning when you read it. What if you remember from Dr. Kalis's conversation, it was about the multi-function fungi that were integral to the forest health and the soil samples and all that kind of stuff. That seems to have been impacted at some point, based on the research of Jackson Mack, who was the conservation at Rye, who is the one who took this for the 10 years. So we're gonna look to that. We've given the information to Dr. Kalis. She's gonna look at it. Now, even if she comes back and says, hey, there's a real deer problem, like this is the worst thing I've ever seen, right? We still have to hire a forester, as Brian called it, or an ecologist to come in, because it's not just about, is there a problem now? It's about how we monitor and see if we're making progress with remediation based on whatever method that we would come up with. So this is just a starting point to say, hey, do we have a problem? And then we have to figure out how we're going to move forward. And if her answer is, I can't tell, then her answer is, I can't tell. And that doesn't really change much.
Okay, but again, I keep on harkening back. Is this to convince a scientist, or is it to convince the Department of Environmental Conservation?
No, this is to understand from a science-based approach. Does a scientist believe we have a overabundance of deer based on this information?
Okay, so all I'm making the observation, I hope that New York State has exactly the same standard. Otherwise, we can do all this work.
We would have to get, Brian, we would have to get someone in if we're going to go for some sort of permit from New York State. And we're going to have a much more thorough and proper process in hand before we would ever approach New York State.
Because you're only taking a small sample size too, right? At nature center, so you're not even.
We're just
Brian,
trying to
Brian,
assess.
can I just add
Yeah.
something? I think, seeing as how we've seen the data that Jack sent us, it's really quite comprehensive and detailed. And they have 2 enclosures. I think one, is that right? Was started in.
There's more than 2. There's a few.
There's more than 2. So there's a lot of very credible, detailed data there, which, yeah, well, we should share with now that we got that email, we'll
Yeah.
share with the committee, take a look at it. But I think it more than meets any standard that anybody would need to review and come to any.
Okay, I hope that's true, but that's not what was said, okay? What was said is we would need to do more
We would.
if we wanted to get, like, this is my whole point. We have to know the standard and what we're trying to achieve. If it's simply a matter of getting someone to say, yes, we have a problem, but it doesn't convince or doesn't meet the standards of New York State, we're wasting our time.
No,
We're not wasting our time. This is a component of the overall research data that we're going to use. One thing that Ellie and I found out going over the woods was they said one of the components of going forward with the forest ecologists and others is to have these enclosures so you can see the sort of before and after and see what's going on. We happen to, which is great, is we're going to be able to, based on whatever this person says and what we recognize is the city's going to save a bunch of money because now we've got over 10 years of data. So let's hear what the Dr. what that
Kalis.
PhD has to say, and then then we could probably respond better to you, Brian. Let's see what she says first.
And Brian, the last meeting, the DEC came in and said, this is the specific things that you need to meet. There are criteria. You need to set goals. And this would be the first stop for us to set goals, presuming that the answer is you have an issue. And then we would have to say, okay, I don't think it stops us from hiring a ecologist to come in and do plot studies and all that kind of stuff. I think what it does is it dimensions the problem, right? If we fly drones tomorrow and we see that there are 500 deer per square mile in Rye, we're gonna go, eek, there's a problem. If we see that, if we have a PhD saying, look, you've got a real problem here because of X, Y, and Z, and there's garlic mustard weed all over the place, and your fungi are destroyed. That is something that we can then say, okay, now we're on high alert, but the process is the same. The process is still, right now we're in the end of gathering information, meaning talking to experts. Then we're going to have to gather data. We're going to have to analyze the data. We're going to have to set goals. Then we're going to have to try and structure a potential solution or solutions and then make recommendations to the city council. That process is still the same. Nothing is changing. What we're trying to do is determine, okay, do we have a 3-alarm fire? Do we have a 1-alarm fire? Or do we have a 5-alarm fire? We don't know what we have.
Or no fire for that matter, right?
That's right. We're trying to understand, based on the work that's already been done, where should we be thinking and where should we be looking to kind of pivot and focus on? And that's the thing. There are 3 pillars as I understand it. And anybody can correct me if I'm wrong, to this thing from the orthodoxy of deer management. And those 3 pillars are, you have to dimension the herd. How many deer per square mile? The second is, what is the damage being done, right? And then the third is you have to then manage or document what the result of your efforts are to make sure that you're actually making progress going forward. Those are the 3 pillars of how this is supposed to work, as I understand it from talking to the experts and the DEC and all that stuff, is that those are the 3 things we need to do. Right now, we're in what was the orthodoxy, that is the prevalent ways things are being done. We're kind of coming to the end of that. Now we're asking requests for funds to fly drones, then we're going to ask for ecologists, then we're going to start looking to document the results of our efforts. Does that make sense?
I just think we should be, in doing that, understand what the standards are that we're gonna ultimately need to satisfy.
Well, I will forward you the document from the DEC.
Okay?
Okay. All right. All right. Where are we here? EJ Borchert, I sorted that out. That's done. Dr. Kalis, waiting for her information. I know she's been busy. And then I guess it comes to now Jasmine and Stephanie to discuss the options we have for drones slash
Yeah,
slash
that's fine. Can I just ask or confirm real quick, Michael Coyne, that's dialed in? Are you with Heat Seekers, the same Michael Coyne? I'm assuming, yes?
Let me just speak for Michael. He talked to me because we were on earlier.
Okay,
He's at the hospital with his dad right now. So he said he was probably going to fade in and out of the meeting. But I
Okay.
believe he is Heat Seekers.
okay. I wanted to confirm that because I don't want to kind of get into the weeds of the vendor comparison, since we have a vendor online. But you know, about 2 meetings ago, Steph had put together this spreadsheet. I don't know if all of us kind of looked
Yeah.
through it, but you know, we spent about a good amount of time looking through 6 drone vendors and 5 helicopter vendors, and we listed out kind of the price comparison. So it's a wide range gap, right? Somewhere within, you know, mid thousands to low 5 figures. So something to think about in terms of, you know, what the budget could look like, and they vary in the type of services. You know, with the helicopters, they charge on a per hour basis, and there needs to be the right conditions to do that. Michael's on, and it's good if he could speak, then maybe he might want to share some thoughts there too. But we do have a pending item for him that's sitting with you, John, which is around his insurance policy. And I could forward you that email again. It's from January 5th, I think, that Steph had put out. But it was really to cover the form that he had to fill out. Give me 1 second. Let me just see.
So I did send Steph, I'm not sure if I CC'd you on it.
Okay.
Jasmine, but I sent Steph the hold harmless agreement, which has the requirements in it. If you need me to send it again, I can send it. I don't know if I
No,
can send it,
we
but I can
saw
send it
that.
more.
We actually did see that, but the policy that the insurance policy that Michael has actually only insures him and not heat seekers. So he had some questions coming back to us, i.e., you, to see.
I'm back with you.
Oh,
Sorry
okay.
about that. So I wasn't able to unmute myself.
Oh, okay, no
But
worries.
yes, I am he. I am one in the same. But I am happy to step off if you guys want to talk about anything so that you guys could get your full meeting in. It was presented to me that there was a public portion of this that if I could listen in, I was going to. But I'm happy to leave if you guys want to speak about it without me.
No worries. Feel free to listen in. Michael, actually, it's good. It's good because you know you've been so kind to provide us with the feedbacks and some of the updates. Perhaps you could give John the background on the insurance coverage nuance, right? Versus your name versus heat seekers, and kind of what State Farm is willing or not willing to do.
Right. I mean, currently I'm in the process of getting general liability for Heat Seeker, which is just an LLC. I'm waiting for the underwriting team from the company that I reached out to provide that insurance to me. It's in the underwriter's hands to get back to me with whether or not they could provide the policy I'm looking for. Obviously, the drone work as a whole, there's a wide array of different drone work that could be done. A lot of it is chemical or pedestrian spraying, and then there's inspections, and there's power line inspections. So they really had to dive into the type of work that I'm doing to see what coverage I needed. it being that the majority of my work is thermal wildlife work or pet recovery. So that's really where I'm at on a general liability sort of side of things, and I hopefully will hear back from them soon to figure out if they can provide me the insurance you guys need and what that cost to me will be.
Okay, I'll double check. I believe I did talk with Corporation Counsel about this, but let me double check on the requirements. So you're saying though, there's no way you could get us like a certificate of insurance listing the city is additionally insured until you get the general liability?
Exactly. Yeah, because what I've been operating, because it's just me, it's my personal liability because I'm named as the pilot for HeatSeeker LLC, that by any issues that occur while under the command of the aircraft are on me because I'm the pilot. So my general liability coverage for myself has covered me for the work I've done in the past. Where in order to...
Michael, can your general liability coverage put the city as co-cover the city?
Additional insured.
It can't. Yeah, it can't
Additional what?
because it's
Additional
it can't.
insured is expressed.
Thank you.
Yeah, it can't because it's a personal policy, not a business policy.
Okay.
But I'm going through the steps right now to try to obtain at least a quote to see what kind of numbers they come back to be able to obtain that proper insurance.
Well, if you get an update in the next week or two, Michael, definitely let us know. Again, I'll circle back with our attorneys. I'm not sure if that's a really hard line. I have a feeling it might be, but we can. I can dive back into that.
Yeah,
They said once I get the general liability coverage, the general business liability will be able to name the city as an insured policy or an insured member.
So it's good that you're actually on, Michael, because Steph and I were thinking about inviting, one of the vendors to come to these sessions and maybe give a preview of what to expect, set a little bit of, best practices and give us a little bit of background, based on your experience with Rockefeller State Park and Hastings and some of the other areas that you've done within Westchester in terms of, findings and maybe, you could share, educate us a little bit in terms of what we should expect and, the pros and the cons of certain things. Do you mind speaking on some of that?
Yeah, I'm happy to give you a little bit of my information. So I actually just performed a survey for Irvington on 2 days ago. So, I mean, it is, whether it's a helicopter or a drone, it is very weather dependent just for the thermal aspect of things. Generally speaking, you want a cloudy day. The heavier cloud cover, the better. And even if you have a high moisture content or humidity level, it allows the thermals to kind of pop out that much more. Not so much that it's a limiting factor for being able to see the deer. It's just, it makes the pilot's life that much easier because they really stand out. I'm not really sure exactly what details you're looking to achieve. I mean, I've gotten a broad scope of kind of, I guess it's, you guys got about 6, 7, maybe 8 different sections in Rye that you want flown. But again, I don't know the crazy details about the acreage that's looking to be covered or the timetable, but they're not, 1 or 2 of them from what I've seen are fairly close to one another, that if we were to station in between the two, a drone could survey 2 locations from one base station, from one takeoff spot. But then other ones are throughout the village where you'd have to mobilize, and it would almost be like a separate survey in itself, at least looking at your project.
And how many?
Timing. Go ahead.
Yeah. Sorry, I was going to say, how many times or sessions do you think is required to get a high level of comfort or, assurance that our count is reliable?
Yeah, I mean, so doing the survey, it's a snapshot in time.
Right.
It's a snapshot of where the deer were when I flew it. If, let's say, half an hour before I showed up, someone let their dog off leash, and a dog goes running through a wooded area, and all those deer spook out of there and end up in people's backyards, and the backyards aren't part of the coverage area, we're getting that snapshot of time that when I fly over it, or anyone flies over it, the deer wouldn't be in those woods. Generally speaking, most thermal surveys are just that single snapshot of time, and then based off of that, they come up with a population number. If you're really looking to narrow down the accuracy of what the true population is, the more flights you do, then obviously you average out, your flight on the 1st of the month, your flight on the 15th of the month, and your flight on the 30th of the month, you'd be able to come up with a better average of what the true population is. But as far as each individual flight, your accuracy level is, 99% as far as that snapshot of time of the area that you've looked at. If your zone that you're looking in, doesn't incorporate, let's say, a big mansion that is 100 yards off of the area, and they've got 5 acres on their own, and all the deer ran around to the other side of their property and are eating their bushes while we're flying, you're going to miss those deer. So it is just a snapshot in time. But any thermal survey is going to run into those same issues.
Michael, Jasmine, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Is there a time of day that is more opportune for you to fly?
I personally like late morning. Generally speaking, most deer activity occurs at dawn and dusk, or overnight, depending on the amount of pressure, the outside pressure or hiking pressure, the people walking in these parks and using them for recreation. So normally a late morning search or a late morning survey, any deer that have been up feeding, during the nocturnal hours or even early morning, by 8:30, 9 o'clock, they're starting to find a place to bed down for the day. That's generally when I like to fly, because you have them in their environment that they're bedded in, and when they're bedded, they're not moving, which increases your accuracy. If deer are up on their feet and they're chasing each other around, or they're being pushed, there's a chance that you could double count a deer. There's steps we take to prevent that from happening, but generally late morning, 9 o'clock-ish in the morning is when I like to fly, because I find most deer are bedded around that time.
Thanks. The other question I have is, you're doing this work now for Rockefeller State Park and Irvington and other places. What kind of insurance were they requiring of you?
They haven't checked into my insurance. They haven't even asked for it. So Rockefeller, it was just a sample flight. It was like a demonstration as to what the drone could do. I flew side by side with them just to cover about 80 to 100 acres of an area that they were looking to potentially open up to expand their hunting program. So I was kind of like, hey, look at this tool I have that could be useful to you. Flew this area, showed him where the deer were, and then he was going to kind of take that data back to his guys and see if it's something the state wanted to proceed further with, to which in the state's hurdles that the state has, they opted not to. Irvington, it's literally, I sent over my information. I filled out a couple of their forms as far as my company name and tax stuff, and we're good to go. And then I'm working right now with T-Town to be able to provide a survey this spring for them.
And just for the record, we are kind of pursuing this as the next step for a demo flight, right? So we wanna-
I think, Jasmine, we want to, so the question is for Michael is, what is the drop dead date that we need to get this done this season?
I would say mid-April. Once you start getting past mid-April and the spring green up starts taking over, it's just your accuracy level drops out. So as soon as the leaves start growing on the trees, is really when visibility, it's going to affect the accuracy of the survey.
So Jasmine, I was hoping actually to get a consensus from the committee tonight to figure out which vendor we wanted to go with, and then push it to the council to get funding for it. Because I have the concern that if we don't do it this season, we're waiting a whole year and we're not going to be able to do anything. We're not going to know anything.
I'm happy to share the spreadsheet if Michael or to drop, if you don't mind, so that we.
Yep, I will leave.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you,
Sorry.
Michael.
Sorry to kick
Any-
you off the Zoom.
No worries. Yeah, take care, folks.
I'm sorry, can I just interrupt one quick second?
Yeah.
So, is this meeting being recorded?
Yes, I'm recording the transcript.
Well, it's being recorded by myride.com.
Yeah, and I think it's gonna get
Yes.
posted too.
Okay.
Yep.
So, you can ask Michael to drop, but if it's for confidentiality purposes, I'm not sure.
No,
what
I just think it's just so we can feel comfortable about talking about them.
Yeah, why don't we allow you guys to speak freely? This
You know what?
not,
I could also kind of share the spreadsheet within the committee, and then we could look at it, offline and vote on it.
Yeah, I do think, John, you can correct me on this, but I think because it involves commercial information, there isn't a requirement to expose that to the public.
So we can, I mean, you can honestly, we could have you could have a work session or something. There are very specific carve outs for what you can talk about in like a quasi executive. I don't know if there are executive sessions for this type of committee, but it would be a very specific carve out. Generally, you can talk about this in the open. Now you can ask Michael to step out just so everyone's a little more comfortable. You also, I just want to say, you can't make anyone leave a meeting because it is a public meeting.
I will happily step out, and I thank you
just letting
guys
you know.
for your time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it struck me as being.
I got you. Yep.
Ask someone to leave.
Have a good night. Take care.
Take care.
So I think
Brian,
Sorry.
what you guys could do as an alternative is, you could vote to move something forward, and then essentially, you look at, if you're picking the lowest, just like vote to pick the lowest one. Now, if it's more complicated than that,
so.
I would just recommend you do it, in public. There's
John,
really-
John, I'm happy to defer to you. Just my only point is that if we're going to do it publicly, there's no reason to ask them to leave. That was my point.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, again, we can't ask anyone to leave. This is a
No,
public
the
meeting,
point
so-
is you can say, fine, don't leave, but we're not going to have the same conversation. We're going to do exactly what you're suggesting: is take it quote unquote offline because we're allowed to. But I don't know what the rules are. I'm counting on you, quite frankly, on that score.
Yep. Yeah.
So,
So
it's
Ryan, are we,
specific
I mean,
carve-outs.
so John, are we in a position to do just what you said, to move forward?
Yeah, you guys just talk about it.
So,
Talk about
John,
which.
I think the question comes down to, first, I think if there's a procedural question. The procedural question is, the city of Rye has rules around what they procure, what they don't procure. My understanding is that if they have what is deemed the same services, that they go for the lowest bidder, right? And that is kind of the MO of the city of Rye. Is that correct?
So again, like most of my experience comes from, RFPs and more kind of
Right.
professionally done bids. This is, we're qualifying it. It's basically a professional service that we're having done once. Now, yes, generally the best practice would be to pick the lowest bidder. If for some reason you guys don't want to do that, you're just going to have to very explicitly state why you don't want to do that. Now, if you don't want to do it because this person has bad references, I think everyone in our organization would understand we'd make the same decision if we were looking at vendors.
So there's a secondary question here, that if we can't get, Heat Seekers is the lowest bid, right? If they have an insurance issue, then we have to move to the next highest bid, correct?
That would be reasonable.
No, but the thing is, Heat Seekers is the only one that offered us to do the demo, which is what triggered the insurance piece. The other folks has not encountered that same thing, so we do not know if they also.
Right. So I
have
think the first question we have to answer is, of the people out there, who has the appropriate assurance that's going to make the city of Rye comfortable? right?
We have not shared that with the vendors that we have.
I understand that. I think that that's what we have to do, because we're basically, what John is saying to us without saying it is that anyone who doesn't meet the standard, and I know this through the rugby and all the other stuff, is that you have to meet certain insurance requirements to be able to utilize city infrastructure. And if you don't have it, then you're not going to get anywhere. So the question we have to ask the vendors is, what is their insurance, to make sure that they have the appropriate insurance. If they don't, then we have to kind of go back to the drawing board. So I think that's the first, call, is we have to go reach out to these guys and ask, what is your insurance? And can we get Rise and additionally insured?
I
So
can do that.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but maybe to make progress, we can make a decision contingent upon the relevant party procuring the requisite insurance.
Yep, I think that's fair.
That sounds
And-
good. You know, Brian, I like that. We're moving the ball forward.
Yeah.
So it's like, I guess we're gonna make a recommendation for the lowest qualified bidder, contingent upon complying with the city's insurance requirements. Is
And
that a
any-
motion?
John, are there any other requirements? I know we kind of touched on it as it relates to the naturalist.
No, this shouldn't, again, we'll have them fill out a form or two, but that's the only requirement that I think could serve as a barrier. And I
Okay.
doubt all three of these would not be able to provide that. This is pretty standard. Yeah, we ask this of, again, like Ryan mentioned, sports groups and nonprofits all the time, and it's usually not a barrier. Occasionally, it may be.
Okay.
Yeah, no, believe me, I know.
So
Hmm.
I propose that we move this offline, so that we could have the bigger team. And I'd like Stephanie to join in as well, because she's done a lot of work in this space, speaking with the vendors and kind of going through the sorting.
Well,
So
I think Chris put it that we like to say, like, do we want to conditionally approve the lowest bidder subject to, based on what John said, that they want to pick the lowest bidder subject to the insurance? Because the gap is, as I understand it, it's 5,000, then 6,000, and then it marks
goes
up.
up to 30, right? So there is
Right,
a
yeah.
gap, but the thing is, we're not really comparing apples to apples. So your lowest bidder may not be, it might just be a cheap option, but it may not be the right option. So that's why I think we need to have a kind of another look into, well, what is the actual services that's providing, and is it going to give us the data that we need?
Listen, I think the principle saying lowest cost presupposes that you're getting
The cheapest.
equivalent levels of services from each of the providers. And until we compare that, we need to be close to at least apples to apples to apples to evaluate that.
Okay, so if we're gonna take this offline, we need to have a conversation, let's say the 22nd of January. Give us a week to come back and have this discussion as a working group, to say, this is what we want to do. Does that work for everybody?
Fine. I mean, I guess, you know what, I don't know Michael Coyne, but all I know is that he's been doing all this work for all these other places. So he knows what the drill is and what's expected and what should be delivered. From what I understand, he's the lowest.
Yeah, I agree with you, Chris. Michael's been super responsive as someone to correspond with, and he's the only one that basically offered up a free demo so we could actually go through some of that experience. I'm in favor of him too, but I just don't want to not have Steph involved, because she is part of the committee, and just because she wasn't in the meeting today, and this is the space that she's owned for a while, I would like her voice to be in the room as well.
I agree with that, and can I maybe try and advance this like
agree.
that? Can we maybe propose that next Tuesday evening, we have a quick half-hour, 45-minute call, assuming Stephanie's available and everyone else is available, to quickly go through this as sort of a breakout.
Yep. I will, I'll put a Teams meeting in.
Does that, well, before we find out people aren't available, but does next Tuesday work?
Yeah, John, when is the next city council meeting?
Next city council meeting is on the 28th. What I was about to add was if you guys want this, if you want us to put this on the next agenda for the 28th, I need it by really Thursday night, like Friday morning, and I'll skim it. And if it looks great, we'll put it on. But if there's a major issue, we can't move forward, and then, the agenda goes out as well.
Okay.
Sounds fine. If we can have this little, if we can have the short meeting Tuesday, if everybody agrees to that. So
And
we
then
can
we'll put
turn-
the 28th.
So then
A
it'll
couple
be ready
questions for you guys, real quick. Do you want this to be some, again, I'm gonna have to talk with Corporation Counsel tomorrow about if we can do executive sessions, if this meets the requirements. I think it probably would, but I have to make sure on that. Is that what you want to do?
Yes. We want an
Okay,
executive session.
I'll look into that. Just, Ryan, if you could get me just a brief agenda, just saying executive session, I will add the item and post it.
I will,
Yeah, you know,
I will send you an agenda tomorrow by noon.
Okay, I'll probably have to change it just because when we do go into executive session, it's for very specific reasons. So it might say personnel matters or something because we're hiring someone. But we all know what we're
Yep,
talking about.
that's fine.
Contractors, approvals.
Great.
Great.
Okay.
All right.
Look forward to making a decision next Tuesday night.
Okay, so just talking about process, John and I had spoke, he reached out to Brian. The way that we're going to deal with the budget item is that it's going to be in the city manager's report, and then it'll come up for an action with the city council, and that is how they would approve or deny our funding. So that's how it would work.
So I can explain, sorry to interrupt, Ryan, I apologize.
Yeah.
Just so I can explain real quick what the actual action they're taking so you're all aware. All they're doing is essentially a budget transfer because this is coming out of the city council's budget. It's going to be a budget transfer from contingency into consultants because this is for the hiring of a consultant. So it's a relatively, simple action. And as backup, I would want, the quotes and some kind of communique that, a memo.
Yep. We would have to have a memo to you by the morning of the 23rd. And then the last bit of that was there was one more piece that we had to discuss, John and I just had it and I lost it. We're doing that. It'll come back to me. But yeah, so we have to have the memo. We have to put it there. Oh yes. So Jasmine, I would like you or Stephanie to. I will not be around on the 28th. I will be I'll be traveling. If you or Stephanie could be at the meeting to answer questions as to the process if the city council has any.
Okay.
Does that work for you, Jasmine?
So far, yes.
Okay.
And I think the way we're putting this, I don't know if I doubt there will be any discussion. So I wouldn't anticipate that, but if it does come up, it'd be great to have you there, Jasmine.
Okay. Sounds good.
And then on February 11th, I plan on giving the city council a full update as to what we've done to date with experts, what they've told us, and where we are in the process.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Now where are we? All right. We got that through. All right. New business. That was the old business. New business. Look, I think that we already talked about the pillars of approach. There are three main pillars. We talked about that there's going to be an update to the council, and we talked about the budget process. So those were all the new business items that we had on the agenda. Those have all been kind of covered off. The next item does anybody have any questions on that?
No.
Brian,
Nope.
Ellie, Jasmine?
No, we're good.
Okay. Next is city manager update. Have we heard anything more from the DPW on car strikes? As I know of two that I don't think were calculated.
So we had one additional car strike, and forgive me guys, I forgot to print out the spreadsheet. I'm at home now. I'm getting used to the Zoom format. I can send that to you tomorrow morning. But there's
Okay.
one additional recorded car strike, and I have location and time for that. Now, if someone mentioned, I don't know if it was you, Ryan, or someone else mentioned something at Playland Parkway.
That's
Um,
correct.
So I looked into that because it wasn't at that location, to see why we could have missed it. What I think happened and may continue to happen is, at least on county roads, that the county would come, county DEF would come pick that up. And when an officer arrives at basically a deer on the side of the road, but there's no accident, there's going to be no report generated. So that seems to be what happened in this case, and I'm sure it may continue to happen. But we're not going to be able to ask officers to write reports every time they come across
Understood.
one of these. It's just
I think we just have to understand that we know that our numbers are underreported. Okay, great. And then, all right, thank you. All right. Ryan, I know you had something for any other business.
Yes, so I sent around yesterday both a proposed resolution relating to the establishment of a document repository, which is something I think we've been discussing for a few months now, and that particular resolution would, basically ask that the city clerk's office establish a web-based document repository which we can post scientific reports, relevant laws and regulations, community studies, documents that are relevant to the community's mandate. They would be available to the public, but we would need a process by which the committee decided what documents to post there. And I wanted to highlight the fact that the mere fact that we find or believe that there's a document that's relevant to the discussion doesn't mean by putting it up there that the committee is either accepting or endorsing the document or the views expressed in the document. And conversely, if we decide for whatever reason not to put something up, maybe something's really old, maybe it's been contested, maybe it's not balanced, that fact that we choose not to post it doesn't mean that we dispute all the information that's in it. Now, I also created a set of proposed procedures to help facilitate doing all this. I threw Brian completely under the bus, making him sort of be the gatekeeper for managing the decision in terms of making an initial assessment as to whether or not something kind of fits the bill, and then without making the decision, he would then refer to the larger committee, which would make a decision to sort of help make sure that there's some initial support before using up some of Brian's time. You'd really need to have two committee members having decided, yes, this is a relevant document. So again, I wanted to put it largely with the chair so that we have a level of consistency in terms of someone acting as a gatekeeper, but I also wanted to make sure that there was general support, or at least some minimal amount of support, I guess I should say, by having two members say, yes, this is something the committee should consider. I would also highlight the fact that we're not going to allow people outside the committee to say, I want this document posted. That's not the point of it. Now, they can always approach a committee member and say, hey, I'm aware of this particular report. Are you guys aware of it? We think it's relevant for what you guys are doing. And if they can convince a committee member to take it up, fine. That's certainly appropriate. So that's kind of the 3-minute summary of what I sort of pitched out there.
Yeah, no, thank you, Brian. The one thing I would say is, to be honest with you, I just don't have bandwidth to take this on myself. I would make the recommendation that Brian, you and I do this in tandem, and that we can at least have some sort of. I think that you are pragmatic and detail oriented and kind of get into the weeds a bit. So that's good for this type of situation. So I think that would be appropriate. As I'll be honest with you, I'm struggling as is, and I just don't have more bandwidth to be reading scientific studies to ascertain whether or not they are appropriate or not appropriate to be posted to the public, or whether they're timely or not timely, or there's contested science or not contested science.
Yeah, so I mean, I take that on board. I mean, what I did, I mean, I understand that, and I tried to sort of take that into account by saying that if someone wants to propose that you look at something, they have to give a 1 or 2 page summary. You're not going to read the whole document. You're going to go on the basis of the summary you were given. Do you think it should be brought to the overall committee?
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair, Brian.
So, and listen, there was another variation you could do this where you basically create a screening subcommittee or something like that, but I just didn't want to over-engineer the data.
No, I mean, we're 6 people, and
Right, I agree.
And let's be honest, like the science is the science, and
I will help you if you need someone to sort of administer it or do something like that. I'm not trying to back away from it. I am trying to be sensitive to the fact that you do have a lot on your plate, and I didn't think that you should have to read these documents to make that decision.
no, that's fair. That's fair.
Let me just chime in really quickly. I am pretty busy with just starting my new job, but I have a lot of experience reading a ton of scientific papers, so I could definitely help out with that
That,
That's what we
Ellie,
need.
if you need help.
Ellie, that would be fantastic.
Okay, but I just want you to know that my schedule is not like what it used to be. So
Well,
just-
first,
I'll be good.
congratulations.
thank you so much. Very excited, but I would love to help out when I can.
That'd be great. I will leverage you and Brian in this matter.
And I will tell you, I rather deliberately did not put anything in there relating to how long the committee might take to review and approve something for precisely this reason.
Okay, perfect.
That's fair. That's fair. I make a motion to adopt the proposal and the procedures, subject to that the procedures can and probably will change over time if they're not working for the committee.
Agreed. John, let me just also mention, I did put a few things for the city clerk to do that I think are principally administrative. Maybe the only thing that's not is to the extent that we need legal advice, you'd help us get advice from city council. I'm just principally concerned about copyright issues.
Sure, yeah, I'll have council review whatever you send me. If there's some, we can credit the authors. It's normally fine, but depending on it.
I don't want to get into. I mean, normally speaking, it's what's called fair use. It's just we're not taking anyone's credit. We're just simply using their product. But I just wanted to have that sort of understood.
Yep, I really don't think this will be a problem. And again, I had set up, or I had one of our departments set up basically a repository a few months back.
Great.
So all that we have to do is start putting documents into it. So when I hear you guys agree to post it up there, you send it to me, we'll do a quick review, and it'll be up there in a day.
Great. And so I think what we'll do is at every meeting, call me crazy, we'll have a batch of these, and we'll have them for discussion.
Sounds good.
Can I speak?
That comes at the public comment period, which is coming up next. If there's does anybody have any other items for discussion?
Yeah, I just have a question about Chris, you said that next meeting we want to schedule an ecologist, and I know that we were talking about also scheduling a drone. And so I think that, like, do we have any headway on which ecologist that we want to follow through with?
What I've done, we have two, we reached out and we've got two proposals. We got two,
Yep.
we sent out another two that people wrote back to us and they declined. I have a
Yes.
fifth one out and hopefully I'll get something next week. And as soon as I get that, I'm happy to again, share it with the whole committee.
Okay,
And-
great. So that decision won't be made tonight.
No. That's
Got
probably, so my understanding is that we need to kind of have that in place for the June timeframe ish, like May, June.
Yeah.
Well, wait, Brian, speaking of some of these ecologists, it sounds to me like it's smarter to retain them earlier because, as I
Yeah,
said,
no.
once the
Understood.
weather changed, there's a limited
Planting season.
there's a limited amount of these people, and also they get booked up quickly, and we don't want to lose the whole season.
Okay.
So if I can get all the proposals to the entire committee before the next meeting, then we could, hopefully at the next meeting, you could decide which
Yeah.
one you feel most comfortable with and then turn
John.
it over to John to put before the city council.
Yeah, and John, if we only get two, but we've tried to get more, will two suffice, or do we need to get three?
Probably, I would think so. Again, I always have to confirm it with someone else. I don't make all these decisions, but I would guess that would be fine. We've done similar things in the past.
Yeah,
Assuming
it's-
it's an astronomical amount of money.
Yeah, I mean, look, we're talking about very niche services with very highly skilled people. So we're not going out to Joe's Plumbing. It's or Joe Costello's Plumbing. We're going out to Dr. X, Y, and Z to come and do like a survey, right? So
Yeah, Chris, just so I know, is this two including Dr. Blassie, or is this two excluding him?
Two, including so Blasi, and you have Dr. Begley. And then there's this other doctor, everybody's a doctor. A Dr. Kristen McDonald, PhD with the science director of the Hudsonian up at Bard College. So we've had a little bit of back and forth, and we have a tentative discussion over the weekend. And hopefully from that, she'll then deliver something.
I have one last contingency type issue. Is, John, if it turns out that we need to have a public meeting to have the vendor discussion, that we don't have an exception available to us, what would you recommend in terms of how we handle that? And then the other contingency is, we haven't confirmed that Steph would be available. So we also have to have a contingency on the basis just that if she has a conflict, we may need to set another date anyway.
Well, I mean, I would do, number two, I would do your best to get, if someone could reach out to her tonight,
Sure.
just because we're dealing with such a short, gap.
Understood.
We're perfectly compliant with Opens meeting law, if we post on Friday, regardless of whether it's an open meeting or not. So if we hear back, and I think there's a good chance there's an exception for, vendor conversations, but if there weren't, we'd hold a work session. People can come to a work session. We'd have to post, the link. And that'd be that. There's no public comment period for something like that, but it would be, if we have no choice and that's what, OML says we've got to do, then that's what we'll have to do.
I am a little concerned on the basis of a very detailed research on ChatGPT while we were chatting that we may not have the exception. So I just want to make sure that we don't get.
Okay. Well, again, we would just make it a public meeting then, and that'd be what we.
I just pinged Steph and she said she'll be remote all week so she could join and jump on the call with us.
Oh, great.
great, perfect.
I gave her a heads up. I'm like, we need to make a decision and we need to get this available 28th meeting. John, she asked what time is the meeting on the 28th?
The 28th, They just changed the meeting times. I believe they start at 7 now.
Okay,
7 p.m. Yeah.
okay, yeah, so we're good on her side, I just pinged her.
Okay, great.
Mhm.
Okay, moving on to the public comment period. I believe Megan Stark had her hand up for a good bit there. So I will start with Megan. Do you have a comment or question for the committee?
Yeah, so the first one I have was way back in the beginning, and someone was talking about the number one reason for ecological devastation is because of deer. Does housing have anything to do with like the devastation of what's going on with our woods? I'm just was
Yes.
surprised that deer was the number one when there's so much
So-
building going on.
That's a great point. However, that is not what the scientists are telling us. What the scientists are telling us is the best way for us to understand if there's an overabundance of deer is to do a study on the understory of the forest. That means that we're looking at the new growth that's in the understory of the forest, and that will tell you whether or not there is damage done by the deer. Do I agree that there is overbuilding in the city of Rye? Yes. Is there anything that this committee can do about it? Absolutely not. That is not our remit. Our remit is to determine if there's an overabundance of deer. The scientists are telling us that the way to determine if there's an overabundance of deer is to look at the forest. That will tell us if the understory is gone. If the understory is damaged and there's becoming a lack of biodiversity or recruitment for the canopy, then we have an overabundance of deer and a problem. That is that they're using the forest as a bellwether for the rest of the ecosystem around Rye. Whether or not the city has people cutting down trees, not replanting them, that is beyond the remit of this committee. That is for the planning committee or the zoning committee of the city of Rye. What we're trying to do is establish, do we have an overabundance of deer? And we're utilizing the orthodoxy of deer management and the science that has been expressed to us by the PhDs who are writing the science on the topic.
Perfect. So this leads to my next question. I know that you guys are planning on looking, I think he said 5 or 6 areas here in Rye. So those are the woody areas in Rye. But as a result of all the housing and the expanding of houses going up in Rye, the deer are definitely going to hang out in these woodsy areas a little bit more. But how does that, like, because Rye, I think it's what, 15 square miles is the, of how big Rye is. But if you're just looking at these smaller areas, which are way smaller than the whole city of Rye, how can you say that there is an overpopulation? Because you're supposed to compare it to all of Rye, not just these woodsy areas.
The way they do the calculation is a deer density per square mile. So they take a look at what the density is in a certain area, they do a calculation, and they give you what the deer density is per square mile. The presumed deer density in Lower Westchester below 287 is around 140 to 150 deer, according to different experts, let's call it, or people that are in the know that are not me. If that number is accurate, that is a whole lot of deer. And so what you are seeing is that if you go to, so there's a friend of mine who's over in Greenhaven, and when he said, I'm getting hammered by deer, I went over there, I sat there at sunup, I watched 25 to 30 deer walk across his yard, going from out in Greenhaven, so they were out feeding around the neighborhood, and then moving into the wooded area, all before about 8 o'clock, is that's when the city of Rye seems to wake up. And those animals then bed down in the forest because they feel safe. So that's why Mr. Coyne said, we want to fly drones in the morning around 9, 10 o'clock in the morning on a cloudy day to see where the deer are bedded down. Deer are active at dusk. That's why they're choosing that time.
Okay, so the calculations will be done for the whole square mileage of Rye, and I guess
Correct.
I just want to make sure Greenhaven is also included. So say that the acreage of marshlands, Rye Nature Center, Edith Reed, I don't know where else you're taking it from, but that is another question of mine. So you'll take that small acreage and you'll divide it for all of Rye? Is that like, or are you just saying that
So
here's the acreage? I just want to make sure that it's going to be for all of Rye.
So it would be for all of Rye. So what you would do is you would take the calculation, let's say there's 70 deer in the marshland. The marshland composes of X number of acres or you know, a quarter of a square mile. And then you do a calculation and then you come up with your number of however many deer per square mile. That's my understanding of it, is how that they're coming up with that calculation.
And then have we gotten approval to do the flying over from the county to at marshlands and Edith
I've
Reed?
been in contact with Dan Atchison at the county. We would need to fill out a permit. He said it wouldn't be a problem as long as we went through the permit process.
Okay, and then other than Edith Reed, Marshlands, Nature Center, where else are you guys interested in flying the drones?
I mean,
Rye Golf.
yeah, well, Rye Golf would be a component of it. I would think behind Disbro Park in that marsh area would be a place. Deer come in and out of there all the time. I would think down by the Glen Oaks. I would think there are some other wooded areas toward between Appomattox and Westchester Country Club might be appropriate. But I would have to talk to the drone expert. I don't know off the top of my head. We're not there yet. We're not scoping out what we're doing exactly. We're saying we want to go look at this and then work with whoever the operator is, and they should be telling us, well, that makes sense, or that doesn't really make sense from their perspective.
Okay, I assumed since you guys got quotes that you did have those numbers.
Well, we have general bedding areas. There were 8 general bedding areas that we've observed deer in, and then I think, Jasmine, what was the number of areas that you guys kind of went through with the different vendors?
We provided them the map of Rye, right? So we had like the carve outs of the different pockets with the kind of the profile of the city. So they do have that full kind of
Aerial view.
the top down aerial mapping area.
I mean,
We're not
honestly,
cherry picking or anything specific, right? So this is where we lean on these guys who do this for a living to kind of utilize their background, their experience to navigate the area that would be able to give them the information that they need.
Okay, great.
Sorry, I'm not done yet. So I know that you guys have been looking into culling a lot, but I was wondering, and I
Who said
know
that? Sorry.
initially, well,
I'm
that's
sorry.
definitely,
No, stop. Please stop. Who said that we were looking into culling?
that's the only remedy I've heard during this meeting, and I know I've been to a meeting earlier on. I think
Nobody. So first of all, we are not in that phase of this. We
okay.
are in the phase of where we've gathered information and talked to experts. We're now in the phase where we're going to start gathering information. Then from there, we have to set our goals per the DEC requirements that we need to have goals. What are our goals? We don't even know if we have a problem. If we do have a problem, what are the goals that we want to achieve? And then we would start looking at dealing with a problem, addressing it. Some of the options that we would take to deal with this have been removed from us, and there's nothing we can do about that.
Perfect. So I guess, again, I just wanted to know what other things you're looking at. Because I know that right now you are trying to figure out the deer population, and that's fantastic. But again, earlier in the meeting, and you can go back to the recording, when you guys spoke about decreasing the deer population, you spoke about culling. So it's
Culling
definitely not me. It's not something I just brought up out of the blue. That was the only thing I've heard discussed as to how to decrease the deer population during this meeting. And if, like I said, if you think I'm wrong, please go back to the recording after we're done. Thank you.
Yeah, the methods being explored include everything from fencing, repellents, habitat modification, controlled hunting, a professional hunter, and culling. The only items that have been removed is relocation because it's illegal in the state of New York, and fertility control because the DEC said they would not issue us a permit for it. That's it.
Great. And then I'm sorry, I did miss this a
What about
little
the
bit.
3 minutes?
Okay.
I think there
Sorry.
are other people that might want
Oh,
to
I'm
speak.
sorry for the, and then I do have one more question about the nature center when I'm done, but thank you. I appreciate you telling me the 3 minutes is up.
Great.
Is there anybody else that wishes to speak? And please state your name and where you live.
I don't mind giving up some of my time to Megan because I'm in total agreement.
Is there anybody else that wishes to speak?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm in total agreement with Megan. Thank you, Megan, for speaking everything that
Sorry, Kylie, what's your, I'm sorry, your name is Kylie.
Kylie, what?
My name is Kylie Blackman. My name is Kylie Blackman. I sign in like I think I'm Cher or something. I'm
Yeah,
Kylie
yeah,
Blackman. I'm with Animal Defenders of Westchester.
So are you a Rye resident?
I'm sorry?
Are you a Rye resident?
Oh, no.
You're not a Rye resident. Okay.
No, I'm not.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
Do you have a statement?
I thank you for Megan for speaking. I agree with everything Megan said. I was going to bring up some of it myself. I would just mention in terms of these studies, the scientists make big money from the studies. That's just fact. I can send you all of the costs and everything involved with the studies, the implementation of what they suggest. One place in Ohio paid $1 million over 4 years for the entire, was culling and everything, and it was a failure. I wanted to mention that, as I've seen, because I looked into it, there's no facts that indicate that deer car collisions are underreported. And I mentioned before, AAA has clearly cited statistics that the top indicators for car accidents are distracted driving, drunk driving. AAA continually recommends that the public watch signage, which they don't. They recommend that they slow down, which they don't, etc. People move to these rural areas, which of course there's more than Rye and whatnot, or any places in Westchester. There's upper New York, but these are rural areas. People move here and they're like, oh my God, there's wildlife here. And I am Animal Defenders of Westchester. I'm going to stand up for the animals always. I have some information about T-Town. I didn't know it was going to be brought up. I can wait with it until the next meeting. It's up to you since there's a time limit. It's fine with me.
Okay. Thank you for your comments. I see Joe Posio. Joe, do you have anything to say?
Are you muted, Joe?
He may not want to say anything. It's an opportunity. He doesn't have to do it.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Does anybody else have anything to say? Comments?
Yes, I'm sorry. I can't figure out how to shut off my camera. So where does like the nature center stand on all this?
As far as?
The deer or like deer population. I know.
Sorry, this is Megan Stark, is that correct?
Yes. Oh, is my camera not on? That would be great.
No,
I think it is.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Are you a Rye resident?
Yes.
Okay, great. So we've had conversations with Chris Siller, and with Jax Mack, who is the conservationist. They believe that the understory of Rye, of the nature center, is completely compromised. The reality is that they put these exposures up for over 10 years, trying to regrow what is naturally occurring or native plants. They are frustrated. They wish that they could do more, and I think that they are. I think that they would like to see. I can't speak for them, so I don't know exactly what they want to say. So I'm not going to say it. But they are frustrated by the situation that is occurring in the nature center at present.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much.
Can I say one more thing?
Sure.
Like I said, I agree with Megan. I've said this before. You know, we scapegoat the deer. The building that you guys are sitting in was all trees. The entire New York State was all trees until we cut it down. You acknowledge that this has happened. You understand this has happened. But the fact that there's really nothing that can be done about the fact that New York State and pretty much everywhere was all the trees were decimated by us. All right, you can't do nothing about it, and yeah, that's probably the fact. But then you don't turn around and scapegoat the wildlife for just wanting to live. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else? Okay.
If there is no, I'd make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
I second it.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you all. All right.
Good night,
Thank you
guys.
all.
Fine,
Thank you.
Night.
Thank you.
Good night.